When I handed my mother the sonogram photo, I expected tears of joy, or at least a hug. Instead, she let out a sharp, mocking laugh and tossed the picture onto the coffee table like a piece of junk mail. "Your sister just closed on her second investment property today," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "That's the only real good news in this family." Then my father leaned back, smirked, and added, "Great. Now we have two burdens to worry about." They thought I was going to burst into tears, beg for their approval, or defend myself like I always used to. But I didn't say a single word. I simply stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked out the front door. What my family didn't know was that their golden child's perfect empire was built entirely on my silent sacrifices, and my next move was about to change their lives forever. My name is Waverly Monroe, and I am 33 years old. For as long as I can remember, I have been the quiet one, the dependable background character in the loud, chaotic play that is my family. The night everything shattered was a typical Sunday dinner at my parents' house. The air was thick with the smell of my mother's pot roast and the endless sound of my older sister, Vanessa, bragging about her latest business venture. My husband, Mark, gently squeezed my hand under the table. We had a secret, a beautiful one, and I foolishly thought it might finally make my parents look at me with the same pride they always reserved for Vanessa. When dessert was served, I took a deep breath, reached into my purse, and placed the tiny black and white sonogram photo on the table. "Mark and I are having a baby." I smiled, my heart pounding against my ribs. The silence that followed wasn't the happy kind. It was suffocating. My mother picked up the photo by its corner, as if it were contaminated, and let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "Your sister just closed on her new house today," she scoffed, dropping the picture back down. "That's the only good news in this family." My father leaned back, smirked, and muttered, "Great. Now, we have two burdens to worry about." For 33 years, I had desperately sought their validation. But sitting there, listening to them insult my unborn child, something inside me permanently snapped. The quiet daughter was gone. To understand why their words cut so deep, you have to understand the dynamic that governed our lives. In my parents' eyes, Vanessa was the golden child. She was 36, wore tailored suits, and constantly spoke about her high-powered corporate job and expanding investment portfolio. I, on the other hand, was the family scapegoat, the quiet daughter who worked in financial auditing and property management, a job my mother always dismissed as glorified bookkeeping. Whenever Vanessa entered a room, the red carpet rolled out. Every tiny accomplishment of hers was treated like a historic event, while my milestones were swept under the rug. But what my parents and Vanessa never acknowledged, and what I was too timid to ever brag about, was the simple reality behind her success. For the last 6 years, I wasn't just managing clients' finances, I was quietly holding my own family's world together. When my parents fell behind on property taxes for their home, I paid the back taxes out of my own savings to keep them from losing the house. When their monthly utilities and medical bills overwhelmed them, I set up automatic transfers from my bank account to cover the difference. And when Vanessa launched her property investment firm, she didn't have the credit score or liquid collateral required by the bank. It was my signatures, my clean auditing record, and my personal guarantees that quietly co-signed her initial business setup and backed her loans. They lived in a golden palace of arrogance, completely blind to the fact that I was the foundation keeping it from crumbling. The drive home that night was dead silent until Mark pulled into our driveway. He parked the car, turned to me, and held my hands. "Waverly, we are done," he said softly, his voice full of protective anger. "We are going to be parents now. We can't keep letting them drain your soul and your money." I looked at him, feeling the truth of his words settle deep in my chest.
He was completely right.
My unborn child deserved a peaceful home, not a mother constantly stressing over a family that viewed her as nothing more than a convenient bank account and a punching bag. That night, I didn't cry. Instead, I went straight into my home office and opened my laptop. The emotional fog was gone, replaced by the razor-sharp focus I used at work every day. For years, I had maintained their safety nets out of a foolish hope that love would follow my utility. No more. I began a systematic audit of every single account, property tax relief file, and legal agreement tying me to my family. I drafted formal revocation letters for the power of attorney ties I held over my parents' estate. I flagged the joint trust accounts I had funded to keep their property expenses afloat. Step by step, I prepared to untangle myself completely. I wasn't doing it out of malice. I was simply removing the foundation they had taken for granted. They wanted to pretend I was a burden?
Fine.
It was time for them to see what life actually looked like without me. 2 weeks passed without a single word from my parents or sister. Not a text asking how I was feeling, no apology for their cruel words at dinner, and certainly no interest in the baby. Then, on a Tuesday morning, my mother's name flashed on my phone screen. For a brief second, a naive part of me hoped she was calling to make peace. When I answered, there was no hello or how are you. Waverly, my mother demanded immediately, her tone sharp and full of authority. Vanessa's housewarming party is in 3 weeks. I need you to book the caterers we used for her promotion party and organize the decor. And make sure you handle the deposit today. Vanessa is very busy with her closing paperwork. I sat at my desk, stunned by the sheer audacity. Mom, I'm not organizing or paying for Vanessa's party, I said, keeping my voice entirely calm. And as I told you 2 weeks ago, Mark and I are focusing on our own family now. My mother scoffed into the receiver. Don't start with that drama again, Waverly. You're being completely selfish and bitter over a little joke your father made. Your sister is doing big things, and the least you can do is support her instead of trying to ruin everything like you always do. Before I could reply, my phone buzzed with an incoming text from my father. If you're going to be bitter and refuse to help your sister with her big day, don't expect to be included in the family legacy. You need to know your place. I looked at the message, swallowed hard, and felt a cold, calm clarity wash over me. Message received, Dad. I whispered to the empty room. You'll get your answer very soon. The following Saturday, my parents summoned me to their home under the guise of a family meeting to resolve our issues. When Mark and I arrived, the atmosphere was thick with condescension. Vanessa sat at the head of the dining table like a queen on her throne, flanked by my parents. They had arranged the room as if preparing to put me on trial. We invited you here so you can apologize to your sister and step up as a daughter, my mother declared, crossing her arms. Vanessa smirked, tossing her designer bag onto the table. Look, Waverly, I know it's hard watching me close on my second investment property while you're just starting a family you probably can't afford. But you need to stop being jealous. It's embarrassing. Another mouth to feed on a glorified bookkeeper salary, my father added with a contemptuous laugh. You should be learning from Vanessa, not fighting her. I didn't argue. Instead, I placed a crisp, black leather binder on the table and opened it. Vanessa, congratulations on your new property, I said, my voice steady and clear. However, as the primary guarantor and auditor of the joint trust fund you used for collateral, I've officially filed a revocation of co-guarantee due to non-disclosure of liabilities. Without my credit profile and liquidity backing your loan, the bank was notified this morning, and your closing has been frozen. Vanessa's face went completely white. What? You can't do that. I can, and I did. I continued, turning to my parents. And Mom, Dad, since I am a burden, I've removed my primary residence status from your property deed. That means the $12,000 annual property tax relief you've enjoyed for 6 years is gone, effective immediately. Furthermore, the auto transfers from my account for your utilities and insurance have been canceled. Silence descended on the room like a heavy anvil. My father sat frozen, his mouth open, while my mother stared at the legal documents in pure, unadulterated shock. The quiet daughter was done paying for their court. The silence in the room shattered into pure, unadulterated chaos within seconds. My mother's face flushed a deep, violent red as she scrambled across the table, grabbing the legal notices like a madwoman. You can't do this to us, she shrieked, her voice cracking under the sudden weight of reality. We're your parents. You're destroying your own family. My father bolted upright out of his chair, all the smug arrogance draining from his face, replaced by a look of sheer, frantic terror. Without my monthly subsidies and the property tax relief, their fixed retirement income wouldn't even cover the interest on their home expenses. "Waverly, stop this madness," he stammered, his hands trembling as he reached toward me. "We were just joking. You know how we are." Meanwhile, Vanessa was clutching her phone, staring in disbelief at an urgent email notification from her lender confirming the hold on her loan. The high-powered corporate star was suddenly unraveling before our eyes. "Waverly, please," she sobbed, completely dropping her polished facade. "If the bank pulls out now, I'll lose my entire security deposit and my reputation. You have to sign the papers back." It was astonishing how quickly their cruel contempt melted into desperate begging the moment they realized who was actually holding up their world. But as I looked at their panicked eyes, I felt no anger, no pleasure, and certainly no regret, only profound relief. The power dynamic had shifted forever. Mark and I walked out of that house, leaving the screaming and pleading behind us, and we never looked back. In the months that followed, we poured all our energy into building a warm, peaceful home for our growing family. Vanessa had to scale back her business and sell off assets to settle her debts, while my parents had to downsize drastically to survive on their own income. They finally learned the true cost of their arrogance. 6 months later, Mark and I welcomed a healthy, beautiful baby boy into a world filled with love, protection, and true respect. Now, I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you have done if you were in my position? Would you have given them one last chance, or walked away like I did? Comment the city you're watching from down below, so I can see how far our story has reached. Thank you for watching.